Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and we are back with Personal Finance for Gamers. If you're wondering why I had the headset on when I normally don't have it on for these videos, it's because I was doing some sound checks. I actually had a moment this week to start in on some Half-Life Alyx as I'm doing the editing for Boneworks, and I wanted to make sure that my poor graphics processor could handle it, so I did some of the work on it, and I actually recorded about an hour and a half of video, and well, there's no sound because, like several of my videos in Boneworks, I forgot to transfer the OBS settings to the Oculus rather than my Yeti prior to recording, and so now I've got about an hour and a half of silent Half-Life Alyx video. Oh, vey. But it is what it is. I can always go back. So far, great game. I really enjoyed the hour and a half that I played. The atmosphere is wow. Like, they really brought what I would expect the atmosphere of a Half-Life game to be. On the other hand, the gunplay isn't quite as tight as Boneworks. The atmosphere is tighter. The graphics are tighter. The way they do the story, well, Boneworks' story was kind of laid out Portal style, so I'm not going to fault Boneworks for that. And I think that stylistic choice was very deliberate on the part of Stress Level 0. But just the total experience was amazing, extremely immersive, to the point where there were sections where I was actually getting pretty creeped out. So I will be re-recording that at some point. It won't be in the immediate future, unfortunately. I will probably have to wait until after the school term is over before I start doing Half-Life Alyx in earnest, especially if I want to keep my Boneworks up to date and keep doing these videos. This is why there's been a gap with Champions of Norrath between that extremely tough boss that I've run into and all the other responsibilities I have. Like Boneworks, I had videos pre-recorded and pre-edited 4 to 5 weeks out. So I just uploaded them, not a big deal. And so they're there, and so by the time it gets to the point where I run out of video, I should have time to edit more video. But Champions of Norrath in these videos, I produce the week that they come out. And so these videos are my priority. I will record Champions of Norrath as I can. I still intend to finish it. That was my promise to my patrons. I've got to figure out this particular boss. But that will come when it comes. So my apologies to my patrons in particular, who I know were watching that series. It is not a promise I'm breaking. I just have to put it on pause for a little bit. Okay. Today we're going to be talking about something that no one likes to talk about, and that's insurance. Insurance is the other half of the investment insurance pair, and you really can't have one without the other if you're going to do things properly. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, please consider going to patreon.com/JulianMcBain if you want to support my work. If you do, you'll get exclusive content. And that is something I'm also dedicated to making sure I continue to produce every single month. So, basically speaking, the things that have priority for me are these videos, the Personal Finance for Gamers, or the Entropia videos in particular, because that's my primary niche, and then the exclusive content for patrons, and then everything else. It just happened to be I had a bunch of pre-cooked footage I could quickly mash into some fairly decently, considering I'm a complete rookie, edited videos. I think I did a pretty decent job on them, and put them up for you for the next 4 weeks. So, well, 3 left, so there you go. Okay. Let's talk about insurance. Insurance is the least pleasant thing you have to think about when it comes to finances. And the reason why is because insurance doesn't kick in until something goes wrong. This is something a lot of people don't think about. Most people think about insurance as an expense. And it is. But it's an expense that protects you from a bigger expense later on. The purpose of insurance is to transfer risk. You have a certain number of risks, which in the insurance the insurance industry we call exposures, and those exposures are things that you have to deal with in everyday life. Your car, your home, You might say something that gets you sued. All of these things are exposures that you have. The purpose of insurance is to be your shield. And Chris Rock probably put it best. We call it insurance, but really it should be called in case shit. And this is a quote, because it's in case shit happens. So basically the idea of insurance is you have a contract, and in the contract the insurance company says, if you pay us X amount of dollars every month or every year, in the event these things happen, we will pay out and make sure you're put back to rights, no matter what the expense is, or within a set limit of liability. So as an example, on your auto insurance, if your bodily injury liability is $100,000 and you get into an accident that you're at fault for and you injure another party, your insurance company will pay their hospital bills up to $100,000. That's how that works. And we're going to get kind of into the nuance of that shortly, and over the course of the next few videos, I'm going to get into the 4 major categories of insurance. But for now, I just want to go through the basics, some of the ideas of insurance, so that you have a groundwork to work with. So, as I said, what is insurance? It's your shield. The purpose of insurance is to cover your liabilities, your exposures, in the event one of those exposures comes to fruit and something goes wrong. Insurance works off, with one exception. Insurance works off the rule of indemnity. What that means is the purpose of insurance is to set you back to zero if a liability turns out to become an expense. As an example, with the car, you get into a car wreck, your car needs to be fixed. The insurance will pay to have the car fixed and no more, up to where it was before the accident. It's supposed to put you back to where you started. So in the event that you have that piece of property and it gets damaged, they're going to put it back to where it was precisely before the accident. They're not going to fix it better. They're not going to replace something they don't need to replace. That's not the purpose of insurance. Their purpose is to put you back to where you were before. Now, in the event of a total loss, such as a house burning down completely or a car getting into a major accident, of course, there's going to be some legal room there, but they're going to look to replace it with something of like kind and quality. On top of covering property, it also covers your liabilities. As I mentioned with bodily injury liability, it also does personal liability. What is that? In the event you're sued, certain types of insurance cover you from that lawsuit. And it's actually in a lot of different forms of insurance that people don't realize. And when I get into property and casualty insurance, I will really cover those bases. But the purpose of that is if you're sued, when the other lawyer comes to you and says, you know, you did my client dirty, we're suing you for X number of dollars. And you're like, well, I can't pay that. I don't have that kind of money. That's what liability insurance covers. And for most of you, that insurance is provided by your homeowners if you're in the United States. I would assume there's a similar mechanism in foreign insurances. Please check with your insurance agent if you aren't in the United States. And remember, like all of this, it's couched in the U.S. financial system because that's the financial system I know. If you are not in the United States, please review it with the professionals in your country so that you have the nuances of your country's system down. I can only teach what I know. I can't assume that the systems of other countries are going to be identical or even close to the same because I know for a fact they're not. So there are 4 categories of insurance that you really need to worry about. These are the primary categories. There are some other more nuanced categories, but generally they fit into one of these 4. Property insurance, casualty insurance, life insurance, and health insurance. Of these 4, the last one I'm pretty much not going to cover for 2 reasons. One, health insurance is such a nuanced minefield of crap, particularly in the United States where we went from being a free market system to a cartelized system. I'm not getting into it. And yes, that's what we have in the United States. Health insurance is now a cartel. Before we had a free market system, the Affordable Care Act, which was designed to bring coverage to people who formerly couldn't afford it and to more or less manage to do that kind of, ended up causing a cartel system to form in the United States. And so on the plus side, there are a lot of people who weren't eligible who can now be covered. On the downside, it means it shuts a lot of opportunity out for new health insurance companies to pop up and provide more affordable insurance for that person in the middle who isn't eligible for subsidies, but also can't really afford it on their own. But I'm not going to get into that any more than that. That gets way too political. So in this series, we're going to cover property, casualty, and life insurance in depth. And so what are these types of insurance? Property insurance covers your property. I mean, they all, with the exception of casualty, which you'd have to kind of know what the original term of casualty was, they're kind of self-explanatory. Property covers your property, and it can cover just about any form of property you have. Most people think of property insurance as homeowners or like for a rental dwelling, but it covers far more than that. It also covers things like your car, your boat, your motorcycle, your snow machine. It can cover your jewelry, your computer. I've got all of my equipment here is insured. It has to be, because if I have a fire, homeowners doesn't cover computer equipment. Ah, you didn't know that. Yes. Check your contract. Talk with your insurance agents. Homeowners has an extreme limit of liability for things like computers. Better look into it. So that's property. It's all of the stuff you own. That includes things like your furniture, your clothing, your desk, your chairs, your table, your fridge. That's all property insurance. Most people don't realize that the property they have is not covered by outs. Like if you're a renter, and I'll get into this in property and casualty insurance. If you're a renter and you don't have renter's insurance, your shit isn't covered. Most people think their landlord's insurance covers them. It doesn't. If you rent, have renter's insurance. If you own a home, have homeowner's insurance. It doesn't just cover the building, it also covers your shit. And it also covers your liabilities. We'll get into that again when we get into that particular category. The next category of insurance is casualty insurance. Casualty insurance is liability insurance. And you really need to think about the type of insurances you have and what liabilities they cover. So as an example, auto insurance covers your liability when you hit someone or something, on top of covering your property. So the reason that property and casualty are often put together is because their policies are mixed. Like an auto insurance company, policy covers both your liabilities and your property. Same with the homeowners. It covers your property and your liabilities. There's like coverage in every homeowner's called personal liability coverage. And that is casualty insurance. It protects you from being sued. And that's basically the point of liability insurance. It protects you from being sued. So you always want to have that type of liability insurance. And you'll find it in homeowners, you'll find it in renters, you'll find it in business owners, and you'll find it in umbrellas. That's casualty insurance. Casualty insurance is a shield against lawyers. Think of it that way. And then life insurance. Life insurance covers you in the basically it actually covers your family in the event you pass away. And that's a hard conversation for a lot of people to have. Out of all of the insurances that you need to have, life insurance is the one most people neglect, or they think that the life insurance they have through their work is going to be sufficient, and they're dead wrong. And when I get into the life insurance conversation with you, I'm going to go over the basics of life insurance, some advice on how to choose life insurance, and then I want you to go to your insurance agent and talk to them about it. Life insurance covers you. Actually, there's two forms of life insurance, and I'm going to get into that really quick here. You've got life insurance and you've got annuities. Life insurance, which is what most people think of as life insurance, covers you in case you don't live long enough. Basically, in the event you don't live long enough, if you pass away unexpectedly or during the term of the life, depending on if you have temporary or permanent insurance, the insurance company will pay out the face value of the policy to your heir or executor in the event you pass away. that covers you and your expenses in the event you don't live long enough. That allows them to pay off your expenses, your health bills, and so that they don't have to pay them out of their pocket. If you have a spouse or kids, it'll let them pay off the mortgage, maybe put the kids through school. That's the purpose of life insurance. It protects your family in the event you don't live long enough. Then you have annuities. An annuity, which many people have heard of but don't really know what they are. Basically, you put a chunk of money into the insurance company, and depending on if it's a deferred or an immediate, we're just going to kind of go with the idea that you put money in, it accumulates value, and then when you retire, you activate it, and it pays out. And there are numerous ways you can annuitize an annuity, but the simple one is the life annuity, in which case the insurance company is responsible to pay you a fixed rate of money until the day you die, every month or every year, however that you determine you want paid out. And it doesn't matter whether or not the amount you put into the annuity and the accumulated dividends are less than the amount the insurance company ends up paying you. Yeah, annuities pay, a life annuity will pay you as long as you are alive. So even though it's not gambling, it's insurance. Insurance is not gambling, but life insurance is the one that kind of comes close. It's a hedge. Kind of like when you hedge things in investments, life insurance types are a hedge. Life insurance protects you from not living long enough. Annuities protect you from living too long. The best part about an annuity is that you will always have that guaranteed source of income. The downside to an annuity is that it can get inflated, or it can get inflated out of value. So you've got that trade-off. So that's the basics of life. And then you have health insurance, which covers you in the event you get sick or get injured. Many countries have what we call universal health care, which is not a form of insurance. I hate the way they say public insurance. It's not a form of insurance because it does not fit the law of indemnity. It does not work. There's no premium exchange. There's no fixed dollar amount. It's not true insurance. It's basically you pay extra taxes, the government pays out for your health bills, which for some people they like that. Some people don't. I see the argument for both. We're not going to get into it. But that's the reason I'm not getting into health insurance, because one, it's way too politicized, and two, I don't know enough about it. I know I'm health insurance licensed, okay? And I took the health insurance exam because there are certain products that are classified as health insurance that really aren't health insurance. But they didn't have a other good category to put them in. But health insurance is a minefield, and I don't even like it. Oh, by the way, full disclosure, I am licensed in every line of insurance I will be discussing in these videos. They're not has been licensed, am licensed. So I do need to make sure that I'm keeping this within the realm of educational only. This is not an attempt to sell insurance. This is not an attempt to market insurance. This is educational only. Take the information I have, roll it around in your head, talk to your agent about what you need. Okay, so I do want to get kind of into the history of insurance just a little bit, because this is actually kind of cool. We're going to kind of pivot here for a minute. Actually, no, we're going to do that last. First off, before we get into that, I want to talk about what insurance does and does not pay. With insurance, you get what you pay for. Period. Dot. Insurance is a contract. The insurance company will follow the contract to the letter. They have to. It's an extremely heavily regulated industry. Banking and insurance is the second most heavily regulated industry in America, and I would not doubt that it's the most regulated in some countries. The general one that's more regulated than insurance happens to be aviation, because when you're flying around giant engines with huge amounts of liquid fuel that goes boom, if it hits something with tons of passengers on it, you'll want a lot of regulations in order to make sure they're safe. But it is the second most regulated industry in America and probably the world, which means they have to be very careful. Everything is regulated to the teeth. As an example, if the insurance company says they're going to pay out a certain dollar amount for something, they cannot deviate from that contract. They can't pay a little more. They can't pay a little less. They're going to pay the contract. Now, some of them will do things like on a car. Some of them will try to cheap out by using not secondhand, but aftermarket parts, as opposed to OEM parts. So you'll want to watch that, but that doesn't mean they're not fulfilling the contract. And the balance to that is your premiums on an insurance company that uses only aftermarket parts will generally be cheaper than one that only uses OEM parts. As an example, I work for an insurance company. My insurance company will go for OEM parts before aftermarket parts. That being said, our the premiums we charge tend to be slightly higher. Pre-COVID, they were actually substantially, not over the top higher, but noticeably higher than a lot of other companies. That was a choice that company makes. You know, you can decide what's right or wrong about how an insurance company may operate, but it's up to them on how to do that. And for a mutual company, which is owned by its policyholders, it's up to the policyholders how they want that insurance company to be regulated internally. So that's how that all works. And yes, there are two forms of insurance company. You've got a mutual company, which is owned by its policyholders, and you've got a stock company, which is owned by shareholders. I prefer mutual companies myself because I like the idea that the company's beholden to the policyholders. It's actually the exact opposite stance I have about banks and credit unions, which may sound strange, but that's solely based on my experience with credit unions versus insurance companies. So that's I'm like laying my biases out there. I have bias on that. Okay. So read your contract, ask your agent questions. And it's really beneficial for you to have an actual agent rather than just doing it online or going to like a phone, a call center. Because agents spend time, they become experts. Call center personnel often don't. And there are always exceptions to the rule. Some of them are extremely knowledgeable, but you never know what you're getting in a call center and you never get the same person twice. So whether you go with, no matter what insurance company you have, and there's an agent for just about every insurance company in existence out there. There are very few exceptions. So go to a broker. Say, hey, do you do insurance with X, Y, and Z? They'll offer some options for you. Or if you have a company that you like and you have a captive agent, the benefit to captive agents is that they only sell one company's insurance. And that means that they are not trying to drum up bounce you around companies for premium dollars. I know there's a lot of agents out there that say, oh, we check rates every year and we move you to the cheapest company. The problem with that is you don't build up tenure. Tenure is the most important thing in insurance because it makes your rates cheaper over the long term. Bouncing between companies is a short-term strategy, and it doesn't work out in the long term. If you're with a company for 10 years and you have no accident record, you're paying far less than you would if you bounce between companies every 1 to 3 years. So there is that. I was going to get into the history of insurance, but that's probably more interesting to me than it is to most of you. If you do want to hear some of the history of insurance, drop a comment down below. I'll be more than happy to go into that. It gets into insurance started in 1650, basically speaking, around about. And honestly, there's a lot of our contracts that haven't deviated much since then. To the point where there are still contracts in force today that are still written in Middle English. I wish I was making that up. Some of the contract language on the insurance contracts that I sell today, the original is still in Middle English. Yeah, I know. But sometimes that's the way it works. So, all right, that's all I've got. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate the support. Huge shout out to my patrons, and I will see you in the next one.